It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my line mates, Devin Little and Tony Wolak. Guys, we talked last week about Steve Yzerman does anything. Well, did quite a bit between free agency and Filip Zadina. We have plenty to discuss, so let's just jump right in with our one good, one bad. Starting with you, Tony. First of all, how's it going this week? And give us a one good and a one bad.
It's the week's been going well. It's been a busy week, that's for sure. I mean, we have the holiday here in the States, and obviously plenty to talk about with regard to the Red Wings. One good and one bad. I'll combine it. Just prior to recording tonight, my wife and I watched Book Club: The Next Chapter, and it was good and bad. I mean, it was pretty bad, but it was a good movie to watch. Highly recommend if there's nothing else on. So,
glowing endorsement. I love it. My one bad is that everyone's still refreshing their timelines and checking, all their social medias for the Brinket trade that may or may not. Just joking, just before we started recording, that it's probably going to get into like September before this happens at this rate. Let's get this done. I'm tired of thinking about it. I want to actually digest it. And then my one good, honestly, is I'm just going to say just the plethora of stuff in Red Wings land over the last week. Like you said, Matt, we kind of, you cross your fingers that we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about after the first week of free agency, but you never know. Like you said, we have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week. Free agency, the first day, Yzerman did a ton of stuff. And then just this last couple days is the Filip Zadina saga that's kind of come to an end now. We'll talk about that. But my good and bad the good is that there is a lot to talk about, lots of activity, not just in Red Wings, but overall. I mean, the NHL, that free agency day actually was pretty exciting. There's actually quite a bit that happened, and lots of stuff. We're waiting on some major trades. The Dubois trade happened, which is good too. That's, I think, one that could have gone on longer. So that was done. So that's a good as well. That doesn't have to be talked about anymore. But yeah, the DeBrincat thing is still out there, and we'll see how long that kind of takes. That's kind of a bad too. But overall, a really good week, and hopefully it's not just gone quiet now. We're going to have like a month or two of nothing, but we'll see. I think there's some more fireworks to be had throughout some teams that need to do some moves and stuff like that. So we'll see how the rest of the offseason goes. We're really early on, so. But on that note, let's start talking, not free agency yet. Let's do the most recent stuff that's happened with Filip Zadina. How much have we talked about this guy in this show? Probably right from the beginning of this show. We've talked about Filip Zadina at some point, but he is now no longer part of the Red Wings. His contract was terminated after being put on unconditional waivers. Start with you, Tony. What are your thoughts on this whole thing with Zadina kind of end of the line in Detroit now? What do you think about all this?
Well, on one hand, I'm glad that it's over. It seemed like the relationship was beyond repair, and like we have closure, and that's good. I mean, obviously the Red Wings spent quite a bit of draft capital, taking him 6th overall in 2018. So it's obviously a bummer that he's no longer part of the organization and no longer part of the rebuild that's been going on for, well, we're getting close to a decade at this point. I thought it was when Steve Yzerman shared his post free agency press conference. He's kind of talking about Zadina looking for a fresh start and wanting to accommodate that. That kind of hit me as like, okay, no one could say that Yzerman isn't a player's GM at this point. Like he did everything to try to move this guy, try to put him through waivers so someone would claim him, and then ultimately terminating the contract that had 2 years left at a very manageable AAV, just to give him a chance to go somewhere else. Like the Red Wings could have easily said, "Nah, we're going to hold you to your contract. You need to show up and compete for us." But Yzerman, is a good person and said, "All right, go ahead, you sign with whoever you want. This, it's all good." I did think it was kind of interesting that he was looking for a fresh start. I mean, obviously he was, in and out of the lineup with injuries. Didn't really have like a secure spot on a line throughout the season, but like it wasn't like he was playing bad. Sure, he wasn't scoring and hitting the box score as much as he did a couple of years ago, but when you look at how he performed, like from a shot generation and possession standpoint, he has improved year after year. Like one thing I do after the season is kind of look at which players improved year over year, both offensively and defensively. And then this offseason and the last offseason, Zadina was among the top 4 or 5 Red Wings to improve in both categories. So if he was asked to play better defense, he did it. He improved 2 years in a row. But I get it. It just wasn't the right fit anymore. And maybe it had something to do with Jacob Vrana and Filip Zadina no longer being part of the organization and him just kind of being in a tough spot. But at this point, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what's coming next. Maybe he's a real life Jamie Tart and is going to kind of find himself and turn into a better team player wherever he goes next.
Yeah. He's a talented player. I mean, there was a reason he was drafted 6th overall. I mean, it's not like no team was going to draft him there. I mean, he was a highly skilled, highly touted prospect in that draft. So I mean, that's just circumstances just hasn't been able to click in Detroit, and we'll see what he does on another team. I'm sure someone will sign him. Devin, what do you think about this whole Zadina thing? Like I said, we've talked about it at length many times. You probably go to a bunch of episodes where his name is mentioned. What do you think about all this?
In one word, disappointed. We've talked about this player a lot on this show. And every single time we talk about him, I've been the first to step forward and say, I still believe in this player. I still think he had a shot to be something really important for the Red Wings moving forward. And the darndest thing is that I still believe he has the potential to become a really useful player in the NHL. If he finds the right fit with the right team, I think there's going to be some people eating some words on social media, but I'm not going to go there. It's like I said, disappointed. I'm more disappointed not in the fact that he didn't live up to his draft slot, because like I said, I still believe in his potential. I still think he could get there under the right circumstances. Maybe not 6th overall good, but middle 6 quality winger good. That's still something. At this point, we've reconciled with Michael Rasmussen going 9th overall. We could have reconciled with Zadina going 6th overall. But it's not going to happen anymore. And even when Yzerman at his thing said, he wants a fresh start, we're putting him on waivers, seeing if a team will claim him, still believed in him, still was in his back, still was in his corner. And then I read that report about him not wanting to report to the AHL, and that is where it stopped for me. Obviously their AHL team's very close to home for me. So if a team doesn't want to go there, it's a little insulting just to me personally. Yeah. But also let's look at this past season. Jacob Vrana and Alex Nedeljkovic were basically given up on by the Red Wings, and they both still went to Grand Rapids and bit the bullet and did their time. How is Filip Zadina above that? He's not an established NHL player. Vrana is a legitimate goal scorer. Nedeljkovic was a Calder Trophy finalist at one point in time. Zadina's got a whole lot of potential and a whole not much else. It really rubs me the wrong way that he said that I'm not going to go to the AHL. Maybe that's not factual reporting. You can't take everything out there on face value, but man, it's just really disappointing if that is what's going on there. I hope he gets the fit he needs, and I hope he gets the opportunity he wants. And I hope he makes the most out of it, because he's given up a lot of money, made a really big bet in himself, that he's gonna, show he's an NHL player, and boy, would he look stupid if he doesn't, show up for his next club.
Yeah, attitude. We, like I said, we don't know all this stuff. It seems like his attitude's not the right one, but we'll see. I've always said this with prospects that don't work out in certain organizations. It just doesn't fit. They can go to a place where they get a good coach, a coach that understands what he is, players that understand how he plays. It's happened many times where prospects don't work out in one team and then they go to another team. All of a sudden it's like, why weren't they good there? Well, there's a reason. That's just development, and we'll see how it all goes. So,
Ted Lasso. He really does. He's a Ted Lasso coach.
Yeah, he does.
That's right.
I'm telling you, that is exactly what's needed here.
Yeah, we'll see if he gets the right coach. And like I said, I'm sure a team will take a chance on him. He's still young, still has a lot of potential, like you said, Devin. So won't be with the Red Wings, unfortunately. So we'll see where he goes. On that, let's go to our first off the rush. And I want to ask you guys, just as a speculation, Devin, we'll start with you. Where do you think, what team you think is the best fit for Zadina? What team would actually want him?
In my mind right now, I'm thinking he's going to go to a team like Colorado, maybe not Colorado specifically, but a team like that has a lot of weapons and depth and whatever, has history with rehabilitating players with high potential. He's going to go there and put up like 20 goals and 50 points this season. Not looking forward to that.
Tony, what do you think?
St. Louis Blues. You know how it goes with the Red Wings and the Blues swapping.
It's a good one.
A straight pipeline between Detroit and St. Louis.
I want to throw the Montreal Canadiens out there. They seem to be having a bit of a trend, taking on first round picks that don't work out other places, and seem to be either they work out or I don't know. But that seems to be a trend with them. They're taking on that. So, but I think they've done a few already. That Elias Anderson is the most recent one they took on. So yeah, we'll see. I'm like I said, I'm sure a team will take on. Like I say, he's talented. It's a really low risk gamble for a team to take him. He won't command a lot of money. If he doesn't work out, then well, he's gone. It won't be a long-term contract, probably a 1-year deal as well. So, but we'll see.
Low risk, potentially very high reward.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now we've talked about Zadina. Let's talk about some new additions to the team, and there's quite a few of them. Let's talk about the free agent signings that Steve Yzerman did on the first day. Most of them, I believe, all of them, maybe the first couple days, were all these guys we're going to be talking about. So let's start on offense and talk about some of the forwards that they got. I'll start with you, Devin. They signed JT Compher, Daniel Sprong, and Christian Fischer from the Colorado Avalanche, Seattle Kraken, and Arizona Coyotes, respectively. So what do you think about these signings? You can talk as long as you want on each one, just don't talk too long. But what do you think about these signings for the Red Wings?
Buckle up, I got a 10-minute spiel here. Just kidding. My feeling on them kind of varies player by player here. JT Compher, I think, is a really nice player. I think he's going to fill a lot of roles for Detroit, going to play some important minutes for them. But I also think the signings may be a little redundant after they got Andrew Kopp last year. I think they're very similar players. Even like their numbers are like very similar. They both played in that 2014-15 Michigan team with Dylan Larkin. Like they're basically the exact same player. It's just that Kopp's left-handed and Compher's right-handed. Obviously that right-handedness is going to come into play, right? But still, I feel like they have two of the same player now, and it's just I don't know. They whatever. Also 5 years. Anyways, I need to get off of this. Daniel Sprong is honestly, I think, a really good bet. Obviously had like a big breakout season this past year with the Kraken, cracked 20 goals and 40 points for the first time in his career. And he's only signed for a year at 2 mil. So like if he lives up to that, he's gonna be, well worth the paycheck. If he doesn't, it's 1 year. See you later. I'm like a little apprehensive that he's coming off of a career best season. Can he do it again? Is he gonna be put in a position where he can do it again? I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of the 13th forward on the team, basically kind of rotates in depending on, how the lineup's looking. And then Christian Fischer, even just on face value, when the signing came through, it was like, okay, penalty killer guy, depth forward, fourth line, whatever, energy guy, right? Didn't think too much of it. And then I talked to our old pal Pat Brown about him. And I like him a lot more now. He's one of those guys that really puts on for his city. He was an alternate captain with the Coyotes in recent years, so has experience leading a team, being talking to the media after tough losses, just going. I mean, you're coming from a situation in Arizona, which is pretty well publicized in what they're going through right now, and Detroit's not going through any of that. So no matter what valleys the Red Wings will be going through this season, Fischer's gone through worse. And I think it'll be valuable to have, not just a player who wears his heart on a sleeve on the ice, but a player who does that off the ice as well. Can't have too many good character players in your lineup, right? So altogether, I don't know that there's like, I don't know if any of these guys move the needle a ton, but they do address needs that the Red Wings had when the free agency started. Compher and Fischer are going to make this team tougher to play against, and Sprong might be a nifty little source of offense. They obviously need to score more goals. So between these three, I do think the team's better, just maybe not leaps and bounds better.
Yeah, I'll give my thoughts after Tony, but Tony, what do you think about these forwards that were signed by the Red Wings? Or where do you think they'll fit in? Just thoughts on them in general.
It's kind of funny. Earlier this offseason, I put out an article of the prominent free agents the Red Wings should avoid. And among that group was JT Compher. I'll get to that in a minute, but there's also Alex Killorn, who signed a crazy deal with Anaheim. Radko Gudas also signed a crazy deal with Anaheim. Tristan Jarry probably got paid a little too much with Pittsburgh with his injury history. John Klingberg was that was kind of an odd deal that Toronto gave him. And Dmitry Orlov is making $7 million at least for Carolina the next 2 years. There were different reasons why the Red Wings should avoid those players, but for Compher, it wasn't so much that it was the fit. It was he is coming off of a career year where he got bumped up to a top 6 role because of injuries, played alongside Mikko Rantanen, which, hell, if I played alongside Mikko Rantanen, I would have a career year as well. And I'm a goalie. So I was worried that, some team is going to overpay for a player. Well, he can be valuable in a certain right, but just overpay relative to what he actually provides on the ice. 5 years and 5.1 million per year is a little too high for both term and AAV, in my opinion. Like Devin said, he is more or less a right-handed Andrew Kopp, and I said in that article he's going to get an Andrew Kopp type of contract, and he did. All right, that's out of the way. I think he's a perfect fit in Detroit. Like, I knew this was coming and I didn't want it to happen, but I know he's going to be a good fit in Detroit still. They desperately needed a right-handed center, one who can kill penalty as well. He's versatile. He can play up and down the lineup on the penalty kill. I think you even saw power play time in Colorado last year. And I guess one thing that kind of provides a little bit of relief is that the salary cap is expected to go up significantly in the near future. Last I saw reported was looking like 88 million for the 2023-24 season, which is at least 5 million bump up from this year. So the percentage that is of the overall cap that his contract takes up is going to decrease over time. It's going to make it more palatable and kind of, I think people are going to be more comfortable with a middle six center who can play up and down the line in all situations, whatever. Him making that much money and for that long of a contract. And as for Sprong and for Fischer, I think Devin hit the nail on the head with Sprong. Good depth guy. Had 21 goals last year. 17 of those were at even strength too, and also playing in Seattle's bottom six. So kind of curious to see, in a similar role in Detroit, if he's able to at least come close to that number. Because if he can come close, that's great, and especially for just $2 million for next season. That's the only commitment there. On top of that, he rarely takes penalties. His 14 penalty minutes last year, and that's just 7 minors. That was his career high. So he's definitely a low risk player in all facets of his game. And as for Fischer, like Devin said, bottom six grinder, has a little bit of offense, great locker room guy, can play the penalty kill. And it got me thinking, maybe I think Yzerman said something to this effect during his post free agency news conference, that sometimes Derek Lalonde likes to implement like a heavier line as more of a defensive line. So maybe we see Fischer on a line with Michael Rasmussen centering, and then new acquisition Klim Kostin on the left side. Redwoods 2.0, that would be an interesting line to see, and kind of serve as the matchup line against opponents' top six. So overall, I'm fine with the Compher deal, I guess. And then Sprong and Fischer are just low cost, low cost lottery picks that could possibly be traded at the deadline or exceed expectations and help the Red Wings throughout the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like the Daniel Sprong signing as well. Like I said, low risk, 1 year. It's not like it's long term. I think he's going to fit in really well. I don't think he's going to score 20 goals again. You never know. But I think he just hit a really good year. He'll probably be at double digits. He'll probably do that. But I don't see a 20-goal season from him. But JT Compher may be overpaid, but I do agree with you, Tony. I think he does really fit with the Red Wings because he's a very versatile player. And the way he's not a legitimate second line center like he was put in Colorado because out of necessity, they didn't have anyone else. But he did perform. There are guys that, they can play with these high skilled players. They still don't do a ton, but at least he can play with those types of guys. And not everyone can, I think. You can say they can, like you said, anyone can play with Mikko Rantanen. I don't believe anyone can. I think it's a skill to play with these elite players and produce as well. So, but Christian Fischer, I want to read the quote that Pat had because it's really good. He's one of the best locker room guys you'll ever meet. Hard worker, leads by example, and genuinely cares about his teammates, coaching staff, front office members, fans, and the community as a whole. That's a great thing. For being able to be a guy that's not just a presence on the ice, but being off the ice is a big thing too for culture wise, especially in a rebuild. That's a great quote from Pat, and he would know because he's he's always with these guys. So that's a great quote by him. All right, let's move to the defense and the goaltenders, which they signed 2 defensemen and 2 goalies in free agency, and Shane Gostisbehere, Justin Holl, James Reimer, and Alex Lyon. I was surprised about Lyon because Florida, he played a big role in them getting to the playoffs, and they didn't re-sign him, which is interesting to me. So he's going to be an interesting one. We'll start with you, Tony. What do you think about these signings? And one question I have is, I'll leave it. I'll leave it for off the rush. But go talk about these guys.
All right. Wow. I'm on the edge of my seat now waiting for that one. All right, let's start with Justin Holl. I don't know if you guys know this, but the Toronto media likes to talk a lot. And when it came to Justin Holl, it was frequently bad. So when the Red Wings signed him, the perception of him that I had based on how he was in Toronto was that the Red Wings are more or less getting a right-handed Jonathan Ericsson. And I did not like that whatsoever. I saw how he played in the playoffs this year. There was definitely room for improvement. But I'm wondering if going to a less frantic market like Detroit would be better for him, and especially if he plays further down the lineup. If he plays a simple game, I think he can be effective. If he's just focusing on playing good defense and getting the puck out and transition the puck up ice, sure, he would be a solid second, but probably third pairing defenseman. When looking at his possession stats and expected goals for and actual goals for and goals against numbers, I noticed that he performed a lot better when he was paired with Jake McCabe in Toronto. So I'm wondering if perhaps Ben Sherratt might be a good partner to start out with. They could potentially be a shutdown D pairing, or at least a D pairing that starts in the defensive zone. Part of me wonders that it might be crazy enough to work, and part of me wonders that pairing might be a train wreck also. I'm generally really curious to see what he's able to do in Detroit, just in a different market and with different teammates. Can see both ends of the spectrum there. But as for Gostisbehere, I actually love that signing. It's 1 year, low commitment. It's more or less a replacement for Filip Hronek from an offensive perspective at 5-on-5 and playing on the second power play. It was nice that Yzerman called out that Gostisbehere played half his time at right D this past season and performed pretty well there. So between Gostisbehere and Sherratt being able to play both sides, and you have Mata on the left and Holl on the right, the second and third pairings have a lot of opportunity for mixing and matching and versatility. Maybe it's Sherratt and Holl to start out, and Mata and Gostisbehere. Maybe it's Mata and Sherratt at some point. There's plenty of opportunity to mix and match and look for the best combination of players to bring out the best in each other on defense. Obviously, Wollman and Seider up top is not going to change. But the flexibility is there. And I think that's something that the Red Wings haven't had so much in previous years. But it's that, and the JT Compher signing and Michael Rasmussen being able to play all over the place, and Andrew Kopp as well. You're starting to see the organization like bring in players who are flexible, and you can move them around like chess pieces depending on the opponent you're playing that night or strengths or weaknesses. So I think that's something interesting to watch, especially as the next season progresses. And then in net, I wasn't overly impressed with the Reimer signing. Like, I get it; it's just a 1 year commitment. We'll try this again, next summer. Maybe look for someone who's a little bit more not seasoned, but a little stronger. I don't know if the Red Wings were in on Eunice Korpisalo or some of the other top goalies on the market this year, and they just missed out because they weren't willing to bid as high as other teams. I'm not sure how much value Reimers can provide as an upgrade over Alex Nedeljkovic and Magnus Hellberg. It kind of seems like he's on the same level as them, or on their level from last year. So unless the Red Wings are trying to give Ville Husso 60 starts next year, I don't see how Reimers can be effective as a 1B or a backup that plays a significant amount that keeps Husso fresh. Then Alex Lyon, if if he ends up winning the backup job, great. And if not, he would be, a great mentor for Sebastian Cosa in Grand Rapids. If I'm not mistaken, he won the Calder Cup a few years back in the Carolina Hurricanes minor league affiliate, I think in Charlotte. He's on a 2-year deal, and he'll need waivers to go to the AHL. But I guess the thinking is that because he's signed for 2 years, the teams will want to just pass on the opportunity to claim him and avoid that commitment for another year, which is kind of crazy because it's 2 years and he was signed for not very much, less than $1 million. Like, I can't believe that would scare off teams that much. But then again, it happened with Filip Zadina, and he's making a little less than $2 million. So I don't know. Teams are scared of commitment, which is interesting because they hand out multi-year deals on July 1st, just like that. So
yeah.
I don't know. How about you, Devin?
I think the big thing there is, my read on at least the goalie part is that, I expect Husso to really carry the mail this season because, I don't think James Reimer is a 1B at this point in his career. I think he's very much a backup goalie and like a mid-tier one at that too, not like an elite backup goalie. The Lyon one is out of this bunch is the most intriguing one because I from the looks of things, he pretty much just signed on to be the Griffins starter. And as you set it up, Matt, he was the Panthers starter in the playoffs when things got started, and then Bobrovsky took over. But like, you telling me that guy couldn't get a guaranteed NHL deal as a backup? Yeah. Like, even then, like, why'd you get Reimer? I just signed Lyon. Like, I don't know. Anyways, there's also I don't know. I feel like I shouldn't get too into this. I'm not gonna get too into it, but there's some stuff that happened with Reimer recently that caught some headlines, and think what you will about it. I just why would you bring that noise to your organization, whether you welcome it or not? Especially Yzerman, who's well known for wanting to keep things on the DL.
Yeah,
I don't know. That didn't make sense to me at all. But that's the goalies. Defense. Justin Holl, the big takeaway I have from talking to Peter Berrettini, listening to even Justin Holl's interview he had with the media, I expect him to play a much different role than he played in Toronto. Basically in Toronto, he was playing the Danny DeKeyser, Jonathan Ericsson role, where it's why is this dude in the top 4? Why is he up there? What is going on? Why is this a thing? What can explain it to me? That's what Justin Holl was doing in Toronto. He was the one that why are you there? In Detroit, I think he's gonna be probably bottom pairing, maybe middle pairing, depending on chemistry and line, all that good stuff. But he's not going to be expected to, be with Morgan Riley and, Moritz Seider or whoever. He's just not going to be tasked to take on the big stuff. So he's not going to, Toronto had a lot of fuel to, throw on Holl because he was always on the ice in big situations. Then when he would screw up, it's yep, there he is. He's right there playing 20 minutes a night. Woohoo, big surprise. Well, if he's going to play 16 to 18 minutes a night in Detroit and he's going against, not the team's best forward lines, his mistakes won't be as egregious or won't be as likely to hurt the Red Wings. And he's also going to be just more capable because he's facing lesser competition. Now, if he's on the first line with Seider, I don't know why they would do that, but just if that's then throw everything out. I set out the window. I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. Shane Gostisbehere, like Tony, love that signing. That's up there in terms of my favorite signings that the Red Wings did. 1-year deal, no commitment. He's well known at this point for being able to produce offense from the blue line. Without Gostisbehere, this team was basically banking on Seider to put up points and maybe Simon Edvinsson. And now you got Gostisbehere, who has proven in this league that he can put up at least 40 points a season. He's going to play on the power play. He's going to be a big part of facilitating offense from the blue line. Now, to finally wrap this all up, I'm going to look at every position here, whether it's the goalies, defensemen, forwards. I just kind of overall thoughts here. It's going to be a little hard for the Red Wings young guys to make the team, don't you think? Especially on that blue line. You've got you got 5 guys that are getting paid right now on the blue line. You've got Sherratt, you've got Gostisbehere, you've got Holl, you've got Wellman, and you've got Mata. You've got to think they're all in the lineup in some way, shape, or form. Maybe one of them sitting, whatever. They're not going to Grand Rapids. I doubt it. You've got Moritz Seider, who's not getting paid, but he's their best defenseman. He'll be getting paid next year. So that's 6 defensemen. Let me ask you this. You got room for Simon Edvinsson on that roster? I don't think so. Unless he like comes out of camp like guns a-blazing and like they'd be foolish not to let him on the team. And that's probably what they're going for. But like, I don't know. Like, last week we were, in weeks prior, we did that draft recap. We're talking about Edvinsson being a more or less a slam dunk to be on the team this year. It's not a slam dunk, not even close. It's more of a half court throw and hoping that it lands. At this point, I think that Marco Kasper might be the prospect that has the best chance to stick with the team in the season because there's just fewer spots taken up, or at least there's more of a pathway for him to the lineup. Whereas I don't see that pathway there for Simon Edvinsson, and it cracks me up because the Red Wings prospect pool is literally overflowing with defensive prospects. Make room for some of these kids, damn it. I went on that whole spiel about leaving room for the kids, and what did not do? Didn't leave room for the kids. Whatever. So yeah, my overall takeaway here is the team's better, but I want to see the kids, and I don't know if I'm going to see the kids, and that makes me a little upset.
You took my off the rush question. That was what it was going to be.
There you go. I read your mind. We've been doing this together too long.
I actually wrote an article on it this morning about it too. I think it could be good for Edvinsson to have that added competition because he's going to have to step up way more to basically force one of those guys out of the lineup. And I don't even know if it'll happen. He's also, I believe, still rehabbing that shoulder surgery as well. So
I think it's done by design I think Yzerman did that to make, it's one thing to like earn a spot on the team, but it's another thing to like actually have meaningful competition to earn that on the team. If he is competing against, and nothing against these guys, but Jordan Osterley, Gustav Lindstrom, and Robert Haig, that's not exactly the same thing as competing against like Gostisbehere, Mata, Sherratt, Justin Holl. So I think it was done by design, personally.
I do agree. And this is maybe where I'm going to start extending the show longer than we thought it was going to be. But don't you guys think, at least maybe this is where I'm at with it, but like there's a lot of competition just within the prospect pool. Like it wasn't going to be Edvinsson, who's like the slam dunk guy. Albert Johansson was going to push too. William Wallander could have even pushed too. They had competition already. They just were young guys, not 30-year-olds who have been around the corner. I do agree. I think that this was by design. I think this forces an Edvinsson or a Johansson to like give them no choice. But like, it's not that there wasn't competition already. There's this, like I said, the prospect pool is overflowing with prospects. They've got more defensive prospects than they know what to do with.
It's true. We'll see. What's good about some of these, they're like Gostisbehere's only 1 year. It's not like they signed him to a 5-year deal or whatever. Holl is 3 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Justin Holl is a three-year deal. So I mean, Edvinsson could have a big chance next season, and injuries happen as well during the season. He'll be the first call up. I have no doubt about that. So we'll see. But yeah, I was excited to him to have an easier path to make it on the team. Now it's basically close to zero because he'd have to really impress for Yzerman to do something. Because what is he going to do? Trade one of these guys? Like, you're not going to trade the 2 guys you just signed, and then Sherratt
just extended Mata. They're not trading Seider, so it's got to be Sherratt. But like, who's taking that? Like, they're kind of blocked in my opinion. But whatever, what's the guys' plan?
But overall, like the defense, I do like the Gostisbehere signing because again, even if he doesn't, I mean, at the trade deadline, you can trade him and get a pretty good thing probably for him. That's what Arizona did. They traded him to Carolina. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how all this kind of goes. But I like the Alex Lyon one. I think he could end up being the backup over Reimer. I think he could definitely outperform him in training camp and be that, because he did that in the regular season for Florida and was their starter down the stretch and looked really good. So, I mean, even he looked pretty good at the start of the playoffs until Boston actually started lighting him up. But yeah, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting training camp. We're going to have a lot to talk about during training camp with all these battles going on. So we'll see.
I have one more thought I want to throw out there. I'm sorry, guys. So last year was like exciting. Yzerman went out, got Perron, got Kopp, got all these guys, and it's like, oh my gosh, he's spending money. This team's really doing whatever. This year, even though it was like almost the exact same type of spending spree, it's not as exciting. I even like almost like it gives me flashbacks to like 2017 when Ken Holland was bringing in Thomas Vanek and whoever else. I'm drawing blanks for Steve Ott, and it's like you're like putting veterans in a team that needs a youth injection. Like this team doesn't need Steve Ott. This team needs Michael. This team doesn't need Justin Holl. They need Simon Edvinsson to take a step forward. Are we rebuilding or are we just collecting assets? I mean, you could say it's the exact same thing, but I disagree. I think rebuilds, to be effective, you got to have your young kids take over at some point, and kind of just kicking the stone down the road.
I mean, is he punting it another year? Like, let's be honest. Like the all the 1-year deals, kind of blocking out the prospects, kind of felt like punting to next summer, where the Rebels can sign better free agents. They'll have a handful of players coming off the books. The prospects will have another year to develop. You think for the 24-25 season that Kasper, Edvinsson, Mazer, Soderblom will all be ready for NHL ice time? I think it's punting for the following year and just kind of let's try to be competitive this year.
I thought that we were punting last year for this year for that takeover, and then we just signed or they signed all these guys. So yeah, maybe he's punting for next year, and then he's going to sign a bunch of other guys, and we're just going to wait for these kids to be 25 before they get brought up. I don't know. I will say this. I do think that especially with a Gostisbehere, I even that's Yzerman buying an asset in my mind. I don't think Gostisbehere is going to extend. Maybe I'll be wrong. I didn't think Mata was going to extend either. But when we're talking about this in March, I'm expecting Gostisbehere is going to be a guy we're talking about being traded. And at that point, Yzerman bought a draft pick. And there was an article I wrote earlier this week, and basically the conclusion I came to is that Yzerman has looked at the layout of the league as a whole, and even just the Eastern Conference, to be specific right here. And we've got the Atlantic Division that has the two most recent Eastern Conference champions in the Tampa Bay and Florida. You've got a Buffalo team that's the darling of the league right now. They're the next up and coming team. You've got Ottawa, who's right there with Detroit, but Yzerman said they're ahead of them. And you've got Boston, who is going to take a couple steps back this year, but I don't know if they're completely out of the mix yet. And then you've got New York, you've got New Jersey, who's going to be a favorite to win the cup this year. It's just not the Red Wings' time right now. And that's kind of where I can wrap my head around this stuff right now. Is he knows it's not their time right now, so it's kind of about biding time and collecting assets, still making the team competitive until it is their time. But I worry that by the time it's their time, the kids are gonna think they're gonna do what Zadina did and be like, I never got my chance, I want out.
Yeah, I mean, from Yzerman's comments in his press conference, it sounds like he doesn't want to rush the youth. And some about Edvinsson, what if he's not ready? Well, then we don't have anyone. And it's but in that vein, you're asking, well, we still want to be competitive. It's an interesting balancing act he's trying to do right now.
You-
Because
think
like
that,
if he didn't sign these two guys, Edvinsson would probably have a spot, and if he's ready or not. I mean, I thought he looked ready, but
so did I.
all right. Well, since our episode's going a little longer, dawned on this comment was going to be an off the rush. I mean, this one can be. I mean, it's not like it doesn't have to be really long-winded, but obviously we'll be talking about this question quite a bit in the future. But Don asked this: in 5 years, who ends up in the lineup between higher in the line? Okay, who ends up ahead of who in the lineup between Kasper and Danielson, new draft pick, and Edvinsson, Axel Sandin, Pellikka, and Seider? I'll answer this one first. I think Kasper's still ahead of Danielson in 5 years. I think he has a bit of higher ceiling. I think Danielson kind of being a two-way middle six guy. Between Edvinsson, Sandin, Pellikka, and Seider, I think Seider's still ahead of these two guys. I feel like he's still going to be, in 5 years, he's going to be at the height of his prime, I think. So he's going to be ahead of that. But I think Sandin, Pellikka, and Edvinsson are probably going to be around the same. I don't know if anyone's going to be really ahead, because they're both two different defensemen too. So I don't know how to really judge that. Tony, what do you think about that? Who's ahead of who in 5 years?
You know, when the news came out about Filip Zadina, I projected the roster 5 years down the road just to see where he would potentially fit in and if this would have a big impact. And frankly, it didn't. He'd been fighting for a roster spot in the bottom six or fringe player still. With all the prospects the Red Wings have, if they're not if they hit their ceiling, but if they're kind of in that mid-range between ceiling and floor. So with this projected roster for 5 years from now, I had Kasper and Danielson on the same line. Danielson centering it and Kasper left wing. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but during development camp, they listed Kasper as a left wing, not as a center. So I just want to throw that out there. Personally, I think Danielson's actually going to end up being a sleeper from this draft. Like, kind of doing a deeper dive on him after the Red Wings drafted him. He's got some horsepower through the neutral zone, and he can score a bunch of different ways. And I think if he was just on a better team and had better teammates on his wings, then he would have had a lot more points than what 78 that he had. Like, let's see how he looks during like the World Junior Championship if he makes the team for Canada. And then for defense, I had Edvinsson and Seider as the top pair, and Sandin Pellikka on the second pair with Wallinder. So I don't know. Yeah, like you said, Matt, they're all very different defensemen. But I don't see Seider moving out of that top pairing right D spot, even though Sandin Pellikka is a very strong offensive defenseman.
Yeah, I agree with that. Devin, what do you think?
I am still selling myself on Danielson. I like him. I'm still a little iffy on what he's going to be at the NHL level. And because of that, I am gonna say Kasper will be ahead of him. Though I do, I did notice that too, Tony, on the wing. I could very much see a path where Kasper ends up being a winger and Danielson is the center.
Yeah.
At that point, they're on the same line. But right now I'll say Kasper, whatever. As for Edvinsson, ASP, and Seider, I think Seider at this point is your top defenseman. It would take some big development from Edvinsson or ASP to overtake him, especially with Edvinsson looking at another year in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
I'm not salty at all, I promise. And I think Edvinsson and ASP is actually going to be really close. And it's going to come down to basically just who plays with who. ASP is not going to play with Seider. They're both right-handed. Does Edvinsson, and Edvinsson's probably going to be a top four guy, right? It'd be crazy if he ends up being a bottom pairing guy. So does he play with Seider or does he play with ASP? That's the question. I don't know if it makes sense for him to play with ASP, to be honest with you. I think they're both a little too aggressive offensively, and you're going to be seeing a lot of breakaways going the other way. So I would think it'd be Edvinsson and Seider, in which case then Edvinsson's ahead of ASP. But I'm not ready to lock that in yet because, like I said, I think Edvinsson and ASP are actually pretty darn close in terms of where you could slot them into the lineup.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see. We'll see how long it takes for that to happen. If Yzerman keeps signing free agents, it'll never happen. But we'll see. I think Edvinsson, unfortunately, will, like you said, probably be in another Grand Rapids for another year. Call ups, spot duty, maybe. Like I say, if injuries happen, that could be all out the window. We'll see. But Sandin Pellikka is still a couple of years away, so we won't probably be seeing him for a while. And then Danielson, I still think Danielson's in the NHL within the next couple of years, just because of his ability to be that two-way third, fourth line type guy. Could get into the NHL a lot sooner than some of the other more offensive guys. So we'll see. I think he does have a bigger ceiling than I'm kind of projecting as well, but we'll see how he kind of develops as the years go on here. Okay, well, we lots of stuff to talk about, and we went a little longer than our usual episodes, but like I say, jam-packed full of stuff. So throw those comments in the comment section about what you think about the free agency class. What do you think about Edvinsson not having a spot? He's kind of been blocked. And then Filip Zadina, of course, there's lots of comments you could have about that situation as well. So leave them down there. We'll address them. Any questions, again, comment quarter next week. We'll have probably a couple questions in that one, unless Yzerman does that DeBrincat trade that's been rumored. We'll have that to talk about then.
Let me know down there if I need to relax. Okay, just hit it down there.
Yeah.
Energy this week. Never brought the fire. I appreciate it.
It's always needed. So yeah, make sure you're throwing those. Give us a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel as always, and give us a follow on social media as well. We got our Twitter, THW Grindline. Give us a follow there, and make sure you're joining us next week. We'll see what's happened. We'll see if anything else big happens in the next week or so, and we'll be talking about it here on the Grindline. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Devin, joining again, and we will see you next time on another episode of the Grindline.